What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to this channel, we discuss mental health through pop culture and introduce you to a couple cool flicks along the way. My name's Captain Nostalgia, and on this episode, we're diving into Infinity Pool, the latest film from Brandon Cronenberg. Now, before I go any further, actually just talk about the movie, if you guys would like to hear about Brandon talk about his last movie, Possessor, which is a great movie. I did have a chance to sit down with him a few years ago, and I'll provide that link in the description below. This movie basically tells the story of a writer researching his brand new project, and in exchange for the research, he gets the vacation from hell. I feel like there's so much that I want to say about this movie, but I just want to do this review as spoiler-free as possible. First thing I want to say is if you guys have seen Antiviral or Possessor from Cronenberg, his two films prior to this, you guys know that he has a very distinct visual style that is very representative in his films. There was a lot of bright colors in Antiviral, and it made that brightness really made the darker colors pop in certain sequences, and then you get into Possessor that embraced a lot more like neon color palettes. And what I liked about this film is that it continues on in that trend, but it also sets its own visual style where it kind of feels like it marries the two visual aspects of Antiviral and Possessor. The majority of this movie looks like an average movie. It has really rich cinematography, but then you get into some of the more interesting, or I would say like quote-unquote nightmare / acid trip type sequences, and the colors really do pop. They feel like just a very strange trip throughout the rainbow, and it feels very psychedelic. This movie, whatever you walk away with, I feel like this movie is going to be really divisive among its viewership, but I think this movie, that we can all agree, is absolutely gorgeous to look at. And I also want to say shout out to Cronenberg, because I feel like it's been a long time since I've had a movie kind of really unsettle me in this way. Like, this movie legitimately played on some of my deepest, darkest fears, and walking out of the theater with those fears, I really felt like I was really, it amplified the tension of the movie. I know some of this stuff is based in like science fiction. I mean, some of the earlier elements before the introduction of the science fiction elements do really happen and really are some of my biggest fears. I know that not everyone might not have that viewing experience with this being unsettling, but it was really effective for me as a viewer, and it really, the way that Cronenberg was able to really crawl under my skin and just kind of like lay a colony of eggs is just really unsettling to me. The man knows how to tell a story. I think that tension is also like amplified when you have a great score like Tim Hecker. Hecker matches the unsettlingness of Cronenberg's storytelling and really finds a way to draw out the most disturbing elements, and kind of really just find a way to just make the experience that much creepier. I feel like it's been a while since I've walked out of a movie and just been so floored with the score and said that like it wouldn't have been the same experience had it not been for Hecker's score. I think likewise also too with this, you have to talk about the performances. Obviously everyone's going to be talking about the Mia Goth performance in this, and she is completely worthy of every praise. I got introduced to her last year during X, was really impressed there. And even though originally on here I said that I really wasn't a fan of Pearl, I have since gone back and revisited it. I've even bought it on Blu-ray and really changed it, and I definitely think it was one of the best films of last year. I think those films work as well as they do is because of Goth, and Cronenberg is able once again to bring out one of the best performances that I've seen of this young actress, and it makes me really excited to kind of see what she's going to do next. She's really, just has a wide range, and I think that's what makes her so menacing in this movie. It's obviously like any other good villains, you kind of meet her, and you understand that she's just kind of she's a sweetheart, and most of the villains that turn out to be the best villains in cinema turn out to be nice sweethearts, you know? And I think she's going to go down as one of the best performances of this year. I know it's still January, I know it's still early, but I definitely think that she is going to be a performance worth talking about this time next year. Because she's downright terrifying towards the end of this movie. I talk about some of the elements that really kind of got under my skin, really kind of brought the fear out of me, and I definitely think that it's also because of her that allowed that fear to come out so predominantly. On the flip side, you have Alexander Skarsgard, who I'm convinced it is impossible for this man to do a bad performance. And here in Infinity Pool, it's literally no different. He has, much like Goth, has a wide range of emotions and that he demonstrates throughout the course of this 2-hour runtime, knocking it out of the park from everything from just absolutely animalistic to broken and charming. And I love watching his character kind of grow. And I'll talk more about that in the mental health section of this, but I just really think that this is such a dynamite and exceptional performance from Skarsgård. The pacing of this movie is kind of one of my only complaints that I had about this movie. I felt like the pacing was a little bit awkward in certain parts of the movie. To me, it just kind of felt like the sequences drag, and it only happens maybe 2 or 3 times, but it definitely makes the film feel a little bit longer than it necessarily needs to. Like, this movie clocks in just at 2 hours, and honestly probably could have been like Cronenberg's predecessors and been about that 100-minute mark, and I think this film would have been arguably a perfect film. Or at least a dang near perfect film. But that's not the case. So let's run this through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Infinity Pool a 4 out of 5. I think this movie is really strong across the board, from its performances, its narrative, its visual effects, its originality, and the way that it combines sci-fi horror. This is without a doubt probably one of the best sci-fi horror films I've seen in a long time. I think what makes this film such a unique sci-fi horror experience is that this movie feels more like a science fiction on paper, but actually watching it and experiencing it, it actually pulls out a lot of those fears that I talked about earlier, and actually feels like it is feeding on it through those sci-fi elements, and kind of eventually births and has a metamorphosis of an actual horror film. If you guys have seen Infinity Pool, what did you guys think about it? Comment below and let me know. Or if you guys have seen Antiviral and Possessor, let me know what you guys think about those movies too. I definitely am excited for anything Brandon Cronenberg puts out at this point. Let's go ahead and talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're reviewing in hopes to talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. Like I said at the top of this video, I really don't want to spoil it, but the third act of this movie really kind of feels like a metaphor for the importance of self-love. And I'm not going to give any context as to why that is, but I want to emphasize this, and emphasize it greatly, is that self-love is incredibly important to your mental health. I know I've said this quote a lot of times on the podcast before, and it is a staple within what I believe in terms of self-love. There's a hardcore band out of Texas called Close Your Eyes. One of their lyrics that they put on one of their very first albums was, "How much love do we know to show if we have no love for ourselves?" I feel like sometimes we get so wrapped up in trying to please ourselves for others, or we're chasing after what we think others will like so that they'll like us more. And in this such vain pursuits, you end up kind of falling into this funk of not really loving yourself, but the ideas and the concepts that you want others to like about you. And I'm not just pulling that out of a rabbit. I went through a long journey in my life. There's probably about a 4-year period, and it's not high school, where I just constantly chased after people's opinions and replace them as my own validation and self-love. I'm here today to tell you that journey basically just leaves you really empty. And it might fill you for a moment, but moments are fleeting. And at the end of the day, you're still stuck with yourself. Fads go, trends live and die as quickly as the dandelions that are here today, gone tomorrow. But the one constant that's always here is going to be you. And you have to learn to understand, to learn to love yourself so that you can also love the others around you. But you always have to put yourself first. And that's not selfish. To love yourself is not selfish. To take care of yourself and invest in yourself, whether that's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever, that is something that you need to take care of and need to prioritize. And so I want to leave you with this challenge. After this, set a goal for yourself over the next week to do one good thing. Just one thing. To just give yourself an exercise in self-love. Do something for yourself. One of the reasons that I love David Lynch is not only for his weirdness, but his brilliance in his writing. There's an episode of Twin Peaks where Dale Cooper basically turns to Harry Truman and says, I'm going to make you a deal. That you want to basically just buy yourself a gift. It doesn't matter how large it is, how small it is, how expensive, how poor it is. Just do something to treat yourself. Because in the terms of treating yourself, that is an exercise in self-love. So my challenge to you is to learn to love yourself and to set up exercises for that self-love to come through. I think you'll start to see that not only will it have an effect on how you look at life, but also at the same time, it will also have an effect on the way that you, your relationships, your marriages, the way that you parent, etc. I really hope this was a challenge for you guys, and if you were, once again, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, links are going to be in the show notes below for our mental health resource library. This is the reason we make the content that we do, is so that we can have conversations like this and make challenges like this. And down there below, not only will you find links to our mental health resource library, the Brandon Cronenberg interview, but you will also find links to all of our social media, podcasts, and most importantly, again, our mental health resource library. Infinity Pool is now playing in theaters everywhere from Neon Pictures, and be sure that you guys hit that subscribe button below. Have a good night.